welcome to A Link to the Filmcast. I'm your host, David Reese, in the show where we adventure across the realms of Hyrule and the silver screen. This is our second ever episode of the podcast, and we'll be looking into the upcoming Zelda game, Echoes of Wisdom. So no movie this week. We're going to be talking about Zelda, and then next week we'll be back with a movie review and analysis. This part of the show is where we would normally read some fan mail, get some listener feedback, read some reviews on the show. But since this is a brand new podcast, we don't have any yet. Now we're just going to cover where I pull a random page from the Zelda wiki and see what we get. Looks like this week's is the Cloud Barrier from a Skyward Sword and Skyward Sword HD. Pretty short entry, pretty short wiki page. All it is, I remember this. This is just that when you're flying around in Skyward Sword, it's the bottom. It's that gray barrier connecting the sky and the land. And Hylia put that there. She did that to keep the land people or the land races or protect the sky people from demise and the demons of the ground, since the Triforce was up in Skyloft. And then you can only get through the cloud barrier with the ancient tablets, if I remember right. You can't just go anywhere. The tablets open up a designated spot in the cloud barrier, and that's how you're able to travel between the sky and the ground. So as a game mechanic, I think this was just to kind of create a overworld where you can fly around and make a story excuse of why you can't seamlessly go from overworld to underworld. Just like in Tears of the Kingdom, you can be up in the sky, then you can dive to the ground. I think Skyward Sword in a lot of ways was Skyward Sword. It wasn't the best Zelda game, so Breath of the Wild could flourish. It had a parachute, which eventually became the glider. The stamina system was tried out. I think Skyward Sword crawled, so Breath of the Wild could run and fly, I guess, if you want to look at it that way. So the cloud barrier. And now into this week's main topic. We have a Zelda game coming up in a month. We have Echoes of Wisdom that I'm going to be playing opening night. I don't know how much time I'm going to put in the first weekend, but I know it's going to be a lot. I am excited for a brand new Zelda game of this style. So back in June, normally when E3 is, no more E3. E3 is dead on the side of the road and in the ditch and decomposing. Why am I throwing shade at E3? I don't know. E3 never made the appeal to me, so I never got on board. I just liked the news announcements of E3, especially just Nintendo. And being a Nintendo fanboy, that's okay. I'd rather just have the Nintendo Directs, which could be seen as the start of the end of E3, with Nintendo doing their own thing, not relying on another party. But yeah, Nintendo Direct back in June. It was June 18th. We got our first look in the Direct. No one saw it coming. A new Zelda game. We get Link fighting Ganon, falling into an abyss, and then boom, we got Zelda. We get the first Zelda game where you can actually play as the titular character. And for the release to be September 26th here in North America, which is just around the corner. It's only like a 3-month gap between announcement and release, which is so short when you look at Tears of the Kingdom, how long people were waiting for that game. I want to say it was the longest break in between mainline Zelda games. We had a Link's Awakening remake in there, and we also had Hyrule Warriors game, which isn't a mainline Zelda game. That was a spin-off game. Not even made by Nintendo, just licensed. Correct me if I'm wrong. But for a new Zelda game to be coming out just around the corner, that is huge and something for people to bide their time, as Nintendo is still working on the next generation hardware, whatever the successor to the Switch is. The Switch 2, the Switch Pro, the Super Switch, or they might just have a new name for it altogether. It might be the Nintendo Nexus or whatever. I'm interested to see what they do. I know we're supposed to know what the next generation of hardware is before their fiscal year. That was something that was leaked, or not leaked. It was published in their stockholders' papers for their investors. But other than that, we don't know when they're going to make that announcement. We know their fiscal year ends at the end of March, so we still have a lot of runway left. And the last direct they had to make sure to specify, hey, we're not going to be talking about the next hardware. We're not going to be talking about, we're going to keep it strictly to games for this year. And that's what they did in this Nintendo Direct. We got almost a full 5-minute teaser on this world, on Echoes of Wisdom. We even get some talk with Eiji Aonuma. And then just a few weeks ago, we got another 5-minute, like a world building, like, hey, this is what to anticipate in this game kind of trailer. So let's get to that very first teaser. We open up. Link is fighting enemies. He's being a badass. Spin attack. He's wearing a hood. Great. He's in a dungeon. And then in classic Zelda style, she's stuck in a pinkish prism of some sort. A pink crystal, just like an Ocarina of Time. Link fights Ganon. And you know it's Ganon because it's the pig form. And he wins the fight. And then a big rift opens, or that's what the game is calling these. It's a big patch in space and time, big purple, the purple aesthetic of a big hole in space, and Link falls into it. But on his way down, he shoots an arrow to try to free Zelda. And then Zelda escapes the rift, and we have a very Breath of the Wild style opening. She gets out of the temple or the cave, wherever they were, and she walks along the path, and we get a big opening shot of the world. And if you're anywhere near a big lifelong Zelda fan as me, you immediately recognize major Link to the Past vibes. You got the big castle in the center of the map with walls around it, the mountains behind it. You're right by Lake Hylia. If you know Link to the Past, in the bottom right hand corner is Lake Hylia. You're looking at that. To the left is some grassland. But here's the big part. We get to play as Zelda. With Link gone in the rift, we get to play as Zelda. Fans have been wanting to play as the series namesake for a while now. And I'm glad the series is doing something different. They're not just making The Legend of Zelda 16, Legend of Zelda 17. They're not just rehashing the same things. They're trying different formulas out and changing with the times. She's not just a damsel in distress anymore. She is a princess, but she also is her own person. She can fight on her own. She doesn't need a protector all the time to come save her. And in this instance, it looks like she's going to be saving Link. It's a great twist Nintendo's throwing in. I'm glad they're taking this approach to it, and I'm hoping they execute it well. There's other games where you've played as Zelda, but that wasn't the core mechanic, and they weren't mainline entries in the games. The Hyrule Warriors games, you could switch over to Zelda doing the Warriors quest, and in Smash Bros, but everyone's playable in Smash Bros. So I'm glad they're fleshing out her character. And let's see, Skyward Sword, she's Link's childhood friend. She's got a guy, Groose, gushing over her, but she holds her own with him. But then, like in Breath of the Wild, she's science driven. She's like curious about all this Sheikah stuff and all this tech. And then in Tears of the Kingdom, she's learning about the Zonai people. She's in the past, spoiler alert if you haven't played Tears of the Kingdom, and she's trying to learn about the world and what's best for her people and learn the lore. She's not just some two-faced character that you barely know anything about. And she even makes some considerable sacrifices in Tears of the Kingdom that She knows that there's a point of no return, but she does it anyway, which is awesome. It's got the brand new aesthetic. It's got the look that they did with the Link's Awakening remake. People online are calling it Toy Link, kind of like how in Wind Waker came out, everyone referred to him as Toon Link. We got Toon Link, Classic Link. Now I guess Breath of the Wild is, they just call him Hero of the Wild or Link of the Wild, which is an appropriate name. And now we got Toy Link because he looks like a toy, and that's the aesthetic of the game. The game looks like it could just be a bunch of toys, a big playland almost, which it's cute. It's still a new aesthetic. People aren't tired of it yet. And on the production side, I'm guessing that probably helped them save a lot of money. I wouldn't be surprised if it's the same engine or the same foundation as the Link's Awakening remake. Just because it worked so well, it could be improved upon. It was a starting block, and it probably helped reduce production time. It's not exactly 2D style, but I'm feeling it. It's a top-down Zelda game. It's not a 3D like Ocarina, Twilight, Wind Waker, Majora's, Skyward, and the Switch ones. It's top down. You're seeing like a screen and you're running around it, doing your activities, fighting your monsters. It's a 2D Zelda, in which we haven't gotten a brand new one of those since the 3DS era. And then the trailer introduces Echoes. So we get Try. That's our Navi, or Taddy, our King of Red Lions, our Midna, our sidekick for the game. Our Fee. Hopefully she's not like Fee or Fi or Full or Thumb. But she resides in the Tri-Rod, and that gives Zelda the ability to make echoes. And that's going to be the main mechanic of the game. Enough so that the game's named after it, which is common amongst the Zelda games to have the main gimmick or the gameplay mechanic be in the name of the game, like Minish Cap or the Wind Waker. So what echoes are, basically it's something Zelda can create with this Tri-Rod, and she can just learn a recipe for an object and she can just conjure it out of thin air. The trailer showcases a table. We see other things, plants, cubes of water. I kind of wonder if every asset in the game can be replicated. What are the limitations? Like, is there a size limitation? If it's attached to the ground, can you not replicate it? What are the rules between what you can and can't replicate? You can even replicate creatures they showcase. So I wonder what they're going to kind of draw the line at, because you're not going to be able to replicate a house. You're not going to be able to make an echo of a house. Calling it now. They're going to be used in boss fights, and I am curious what the minds of Nintendo thought of for the boss fights in this game. In the Ganon boss fight, are we going to be able to make an echo of Link and use that to fight alongside us? Or do we make an echo of Ganon to fight Ganon, defeat Ganon with himself? I'm curious to see what we'll be able to do. Will we make companions in the game and be able to make echoes of them? Like the different races. I guess we'll hop into that now. We have the different races of the game that are kind of more explored in the more recent trailer. And we got the Zoras, the Gerudo, Gorons, Dekus. Can we be able to make echoes of them? That'd be cool. Like if they have their own water ability, sand ability, rock ability. I wouldn't put it past them. The Nintendo's not going to show us everything in these trailers. But let's talk more about the denizens of Hyrule. We got the Deku Scrubs in lieu of the Koroks. We got two different Zoras, the sea and the river. We got the Gerudo and the Goron people. We don't get the Ritos. We don't got Koroks. We don't have the one-off races like the Minish or the Twilight. We kind of just have what the series is called in Staples, but with Deku Scrubs this time, which kind of threw me off. I welcome it. Haven't seen them in a while. I think the last time we saw them was must have been Majora's Mask, but it does a nice job of panning through all the different places. We get to see Gerudo Town like it is in Breath of the Wild, talking about the sandstorms creating issues, and they have a nice oasis you can chill in. 2 different types of Zoras. Haven't really seen them named the different types, the river and the sea Zora, but they are different in terms of how they've been implemented in the game's past. Like if you even look at the original Zora, game number 1, they're just in the water and they spit attacks at you. That's pretty much all they do. And then we get the sea Zora that you learn to swim and have that mechanic with. The game already hints that there's conflict between the 2 different types of Zoras, whether it's some sort of politics. I don't know. Well, what are they fighting over? They kind of tease at it, but they don't tell us. Is it certain water rights? Is there a gray area between river and sea jurisdiction? I don't quite know. Well, I guess we won't know until we see. We get a glimpse of Elden Volcano, cliffs, lava, edible rocks, Gorons. I think this is the first time the Gorons are in a 2D style game. I've always associated them with the 3D, the main 3D entries. Fair and Wetlands. This is where we get the Deku Scrubs. This is the Great Deku Tree. No Kokiri, but they haven't been around in a while. Were the Kokiri a one-off game? Were they only in, or like a one-off race? Were they only in Ocarina of Time? That might be right. We haven't seen the Kokiri kids in a while. We've had the Koroks since Wind Waker, but now we got the Deku Scrubs, and then the trailer gives us a hint that they have a sweet tooth. So we'll get some sort of candy quest or some sort of sugar-themed level mission in this game. I'm a little skeptical on. I don't know what it is about food level design, but that's a personal thing. So after it introduces the different races of people in the world, they mention that people across the land are having trouble. And they're like, dude, we can do some side quests. They introduce side quests, you get rewarded. And from a narrative standpoint, I think this is cool because you're the princess of the land. You're not just some schlub going around helping people out. You're not the hero. You are the princess. These are actually your subjects, and you're helping them out with their problems. You're actually helping out your citizens. We see a wanted poster that shows Zelda as a fugitive. Just like in A Link to the Past, Zelda gets out of jail with Link, and that's what causes Link to be in the wanted posters. Now in this game, what does Zelda do to get on the wanted posters? Brings up the fact in the trailer when we're introduced to Tri, she's in a prison cell. So after the rift, how did Zelda end up in the prison cell? And how did her and Tri leave? Obviously by making echoes, and that's probably going to be the tutorial format, getting out of the prison, getting out of the cell. But I welcome it. I'm just curious why she's in there in the first place. Why is she a fugitive in Hyrule? Did Ganon or another bad guy take over that we haven't seen yet? So they show off the side quests. I kind of see that it looks like we might be getting these fetch quests in the style of, I need to see an echo of this creature. Can you bring an echo of this creature to me to show me what this blob looks like? And that's what it looks around. But then we get El Horso. We get a horse. We get to run around on a horse just like all the Zelda games, but in a 2D one, or 2D style, a top-down style Zelda game. They don't show where you get the horse. I don't know if you have to catch it in the wild. They show different toned horses. So I wonder if Epona is randomly generated with coloring, or if you catch your own horse. That's a mystery that they didn't really show. And then there's a smoothie shops, which is a fun feature to add. I'm curious to mess around, get some smoothies when I'm chilling in Hyrule. We get costumes, so you can have different outfits. I guess they're really leaning into the costume thing, like in Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom has so many outfits. And then we have the bind ability, which is basically ultra handing objects together. When they're showcasing that the horse stuff and the bind, we get a quick glimpse of where Link's house is in A Link to the Past, and it's not there yet. Off that alone, I'm willing to gamble this might be a prequel to A Link to the Past. Depends on how the story wraps up. And that's kind of what they show us in the 2 trailers that are out so far. I got some predictions, some things I kind of anticipate coming to the game, and I can be right, I can be wrong, but in classic Nintendo fashion, I think they're only showing us the first 5 hours of gameplay. I don't think they're showing us random segments from the entire game. They're being real selective of what they're showing us, where. Only going to show us the early game. With the Rift and the obvious influences from A Link to the Past, I'm willing to bet there's a dark world or some sort of counterpart world, a low rule, if you will, some sort of other world that they're keeping from us. Kind of like how they didn't really show us the depths in the Tears of the Kingdom play marketing. We didn't really get to see the depths, which is the size of the entire map, but they didn't really show it. They were showcasing the sky and the ground, but not really the depths. So probably keeping that close to the chest if there is a dark world they're hiding. Other things, ESRB did a rating for the game, and on the store listings, it's revealed there's some Link gameplay. People are reading between the lines. I think you're only really going to play as Link in the beginning, at the very, very beginning, just to teach you the basic controls, and then we'll have the story beat. The second trailer does give us a parchment map that's not entirely filled out, just has some vague landmarks, and people are going wild, merging Breath of the Wild and the Link to the Past maps on what the locations are. Could be wrong, could be right. Personally, I want to explore it naturally as the game progresses. At a quick glance, it looks bigger than like A Link Between Worlds, A Link to the Past. It looks like a traditional Zelda layout in a sense where the Gorons and Elden Volcano is on the top part of the map. The desert is on the bottom left. Castle is kind of in the middle. Makes sense for me. Collectibles in this game. People are speculating that we're collecting cats in this. Every game has some sort of collectible. The famous Korok seeds, the feathers in Link's Awakening. I think it's a series staple to have some sort of collectible. I'm curious to see what those are in this game. Apparently the running gambit is cats. I think the game's going to be focused around this tri-rod. I don't think we're going to be getting random items. I think Nintendo or the series is getting away from designated item for designated cavern. I also think they're getting rid of that linear format. It's probably going to be pick a direction you want to go and you'll be able to solve puzzles and work in that direction, and the game will get harder naturally. Or they might do a reversal and they just haven't shown it yet. But I know they've been tweaking things with items. Skyward Sword, they had the upgrade mechanic. Link Between Worlds, we had the rental mechanic. They might be trying something new and haven't showcased that yet. I do miss the hook shot. That was something I wish Breath of the Wild I had, so I could just get 2 things quicker. Help climb up the cliffs a little better with the hook shot. The Zelda timeline people, they're going crazy right now. I used to care more about the timeline. Then Nintendo made an official stance on it, which really mucked a lot of things up and didn't make sense. And people are already trying to place this in a timeline and predict where it is just off the trailer clues. It's fun, but speculation. They're going off of like the citizen types that we have, like the fact we have the Deku Scrubs in this game and not the Koroks. I wouldn't make a decision until I play the whole game. And even then, this series isn't really one where they care too much about the canon. Bad guys didn't showcase a bad guy. We saw Ganon in the beginning. I'm assuming he's the bad guy. They didn't showcase a Vadi or a Zant. I'm guessing we're just going to have Ganon because he's evil and he wants the Triforce, which alludes into Tri, our friend in the Tri-Rod. Can't have that kind of name without referencing the Triforce, maybe. Is this the power of the Triforce of wisdom that's helping Zelda create these echoes? Is that going to be a story beat? And I really want to know what the echo limit is. Can you only have one? Because they show that you can stack like tables. So how many echoes can you make in the world? I'm curious. Other characters making traditional comebacks or roles in the game. Do we have an Impa? Does Zelda have an assistant or a friend or a protector at the beginning, or someone to go to? What's the King of Hyrule doing in this situation? We saw Zelda's a fugitive, so is he a fugitive as well, or is he taken prisoner and you have to save him? What other zany characters can we expect? Can this be the return of Tingle? In 2024, can Tingle make a comeback? At least here in North America. He's our little cartographer for the game. He doesn't have to be super big and in your face, but I think that'd be fun. Like I mentioned earlier, the game format, is it just going to be go to the different races, do their thing, and then you have your big bad guy fight? Which is very likely to be the format of the game. You just go to each race, do a dungeon, help the people, and then once you help all the people in the land, you get together and you fight the big bad, you fight Ganon. Or is there gonna be like a two-halfer? You do that and then you address the Rift stuff, and then in the second half. So like first half, helping the citizens, some mid-game event that opens up the Dark World or something. And then a second half where you actually do the hard part of the big dungeons, the big set pieces, and fight the big bad at the end. I could use a good new Zelda dungeon. I really could. The Divine Beasts and Tears of the Kingdom didn't quite cut it for me. I want that traditional Ocarina of Time style dungeon. People talk about the Water Temple, how much they hate it. I'll go on the record and just say it's not that bad. It's just tedious. Backtrack. That's getting off topic, though. Water Temple from Ocarina of Time, hot take, not as bad as people make it seem. What references will we get from other previous games? Will they name locations? It looks like we got a Lon Lon Ranch when they were showing off the horse. Will they call it Lon Lon Ranch? What kind of enemies are we getting from previous games? Are we getting the staples, the keys, the moblins? Are we getting new enemies? What do they look like? I really like the dark nuts, but I doubt we're getting dark nuts in this one because you're playing as Zelda and they're a very swordplay heavy enemy, and that's not the gameplay style for this game. But I'm excited to see what Nintendo comes up with. It's always a pleasant surprise on what new enemies there are. And not just the same enemy, but different elements, but actually fundamentally different enemies, learning different patterns, movement. I'm so excited to play this game. I'm going to be downloading it, and I'll be trying to play it that first night. I'll be up late. Typically, if you buy it digitally, you can play it like Thursday night of the release date, like at 8 or 9 p.m. here. Probably going to be doing that Thursday night, just checking, can the game be played? Can the game be played? Digital or physical? I don't have a preference. If the physicals had game manuals like they used to, or something worth collecting, I'd be more inclined. But the fact it's just the case art, and the cartridge doesn't really do it for me. Granted, all the Zelda games I have are physical. All the other games I get are digital. This might be my first digital Zelda game, just so I can play it opening night. This is going to be the segment of the show where I'll normally answer fan mail questions. If you have questions, send them to ZeldaFilmcast@gmail.com. There's also a send a message link in the show notes. They can be about Zelda, they can be about movies, life, or whatever the hell you want. But that's going to be it for this week's episode. If you like what you heard, tell a friend and leave us a review. If you want to make any movie suggestions or if you have any feedback, love to hear them. Follow me on X, formerly Twitter, @ZeldaFilmcast. And if you want to watch the episode for next week, we'll be watching Disney's Peter Pan 1953, outfit inspiration for Link, and other elements that we'll talk about. But thanks for listening, and may the Triforce be with you.